concepts. So in summary, the number 11, as used by the Freemasons and all occult members, represents the eternal government or eternal kingdom of the Antichrist that will rule simultaneously with the eternal government of the Most High. But it will be in eternal opposition to the kingdom of God, because the Antichrist government, Lucifer's government, will be ruled by absolutely opposite principles than those found within God's commandments. Hence, the followers of Lucifer think that they will reign with Lucifer in a kingdom that will break God's 10 commandments. So, if we put the numbers 9 and 11 together, this is the occult meaning that we will get. The destruction of the present order to establish a new world order that will be governed by Lucifer, in which all of his subjects will live as immortal sinners in opposition to God's eternal kingdom and in opposition to God's eternal law. This is the very same lie that Satan used from the very beginning to seduce and deceive humanity into rebelling with him against God. In Genesis chapter 3, when Satan came to Eve in the Garden of Eden, using a snake as a medium to promote his lies, when he questioned Eve and asked her, "Yea, hath God not said that ye shall eat of every tree of the garden?" Eve answered him by responding in Genesis chapter 3, starting at verse 2, by saying, "Yea, God hath said that we may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil." Here, Satan, which Freemasons and occult members still refer to as Lucifer, told Eve that if she would break God's law, number one, her eyes would be opened, insinuating that to obey God makes one blind and ignorant. Number two, if she rejected God's commandment, she would be as God, which means she would become immortal, because according to 1 Timothy 6 and verse 16, God is the only one who hath immortality and dwells in light. And number three, to obtain immortality and to be like God, one must know both good and evil, which is the occult concept behind the yin and the yang, light and darkness, the balancing of both good and evil for the perpetuation of existence. So in essence, according to those in Freemasonry and the occult, for one to become like God, they must reject God's light, which is simply to reject God's commandments. And this gives us the answer to why the album that was released before Jay-Z's album entitled Kingdom Come was the album entitled The Black Album. You see, according to Jay-Z and his occult buddies, the principles of God's commandments, which is the light, must first be blacked out or rejected before Lucifer's eternal kingdom can come. Jay-Z's albums are mass brainwashing tools to mold people, especially the youth, for the new Luciferian world order. And just when you thought it couldn't get much worse, I saved the very best part for last. In the occult, the number 11 is also supposed to act as a channel for information between the higher and the lower. So, when Jay-Z releases his highly anticipated album, The Blueprint 3, on this highly occult date, 9/11, the demonic forces of Satan will be working heavily upon the mind of every individual that purchases this album to possess them with the very same spirit that is embodied within the satanic blueprint, so that these poor individuals who will become possessed with this satanic spirit will submit their consciences, submit their wills to being subjects in Lucifer's new world order. Now, there remains one last point of importance that I need to share with you before we go forward and analyze some of the deceptions contained within Jay-Z's new Run This Town music video. But first, take a look at this MTV interview of Jay-Z speaking about the symbolism of the 3 stripes on his new Blueprint 3 album cover.
Still about music at the end of the day, and the 3 stripes that everyone's asking about is made from the original 3. The first 3 that they made on the wall was, someone with their hand like carving out that was the first 3. And if you look at it 3, how it is now, all they did was connect the lines to them, and that was like the origins of the original 3.
Did you listen closely to what Jay-Z said? His explanation for the 3 lines located on the front of his album, The Blueprint 3, is that he got the idea from the origin of the original 3 that was written with 3 parallel lines on a wall. So where did these 3 lines that symbolize the original 3 come from? The origin, my friend, of these 3 lines representing the number 3 originated in ancient Egypt. And in ancient Egypt, these 3 lines did not just simply represent the number 3. These 3 lines represented the pagan trinity of Ptah, Ra, and Amen. By the 11th dynasty of Egypt, the triad or trinity of Ptah, Ra, and Amen became known as Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Osiris or Ptah was known as the god of the underworld. Isis was the wife and sister of Osiris, and Horus was their son. Now, you may be wondering, did Jay-Z know all of this, or was this just a coincidence? Well, first of all, I will refer you back to Jay-Z's own words.
The 3 stripes that everyone's asking about is made from the original 3. The first 3 that they made on the wall was, someone with their hand like carving out that was the first 3. And if you look at it 3, how it is now, all they did was connect the lines to them, and that was like the origins of the original 3.
Clearly, Jay-Z knew where he got the idea of using 3 lines to represent the original 3 from. So now, the next question you should ask is, well, what would inspire Jay-Z to draw from ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs to get a design for his album cover? Perhaps Freemason Thomas D. Worrell can help us answer this question. In the Freemason Thomas D. Worrell's essay on ancient friend and brother, the great Pythagoras, he writes, "In our Masonic adventure, we encounter this great historical figure or his work more than once. The first meeting occurs in the 3rd degree, in the company of the hieroglyphical emblems." I hope you were paying attention to this man's words, because if you were, you would realize that it is when the Freemason reaches the 3rd degree that he begins to study hieroglyphs, which are stylized pictures or objects that represent words, sounds, or writing systems. Now, do you remember